Hello to all of our listeners and viewers out there. It's Alicia too, back with my soul sister from another mister and co-host Tori Kravitz, and you are tuning into a new episode of She's with the Band. Now, one of my favorite aspects about hosting this show is learning about all of these trailblazing, impressive women who have such different talents out there, and today we are diving into the world of pure art as Shevy Marie now joins us, makeup artist to the metal stars including INK and Motionless in White. Shevy, welcome to the show.
What's up? Thanks so much for having me.
Hi. How are you?
I'm great.
Dude, is so... Sorry, go on, Alicia.
I was literally about to say, I know you two go way back. So before we actually get into our questions, I'd love for you two to just share with everyone listening exactly where this friendship began.
I mean, I could take it away if you would like.
Yeah, by all means.
I mean, I know INK from Warped Tour days, having been on the tour with them before, and they became really good friends of mine. And then coming out to visit them at a few shows post Warped Tour, I was introduced very excitedly to Shevy from Patrick, the drummer, who you two are tight as well, and I'm good friends with him too. And he was just like, "You have to meet Shevy. You're gonna love her." That was the exact words, and he was not wrong. So now with this podcast, it was just like, well, of course we have to have Shevy on it. So thank you for joining us once again.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Anything else you want to add to that story? I don't know if you have a different side of it than me.
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, I've only heard nothing but positive things about Tori, like the iconic journalist, and obviously, like, I was like, oh gosh, she's in front of me, and I get to meet her. Oh.
That's
Sorry,
so funny.
I don't know if you guys can cut this, but my dog just came into the room, and I thought I locked him away.
Aw, I mean, we're always down for fur baby appearances, so
we're very big fans of the fur babies.
He's a big Roddy. He hasn't learned his size yet. So sit. Okay.
Okay, we got him.
Yeah.
And we're back.
Well, the first question we really wanted to ask you here is, when I think of makeup artists, touring isn't necessarily the first thing I think of when it comes to that kind of position. Except maybe when you think of like the biggest pop stars in the world, like of course Taylor Swift probably has a makeup artist, but INK, it makes sense with how theatrical they are, but it's such a unique position that you have being able to tour with rock bands and do this kind of artistry. So I'd love to hear just the backstory, because I don't even really know it, of how you ended up connecting with these bands and eventually turning your talent of makeup artistry into a touring gig, because that sounds like the dream.
Yeah, so I ironically saw Ice9 with Motionless in like early April of 2018. And I was just going with a friend because he's like, I have an extra ticket. So I went and I saw their performance and I was like, oh, okay, cool band. And then I saw them again later at Warped. And I had just gotten out of college and everything. So I had like no plans, but I was really brushing up on my SFX skills and just trying to get out there. So I was like, okay, I'm going to make this a dream. I'm going to do it. But I never thought that it would end up happening with a band. So basically, I saw them live and they were adding a little more of the theatrical elements. So they were like dressing up. Like JD had the mask and everything. They would bring out the beach balls and the flag. So it wasn't anything major elevated, but they were attention grabbing. Like you were always curious about what was about them. So later on, I was at the Hartford, Connecticut date, and it was like the last minute VIP. You pay $5 for their poster. So my partner at the time was like, just go do it. Like, you never know. Because in the back of my mind, I was like, what if they need a makeup artist? Like, what if I could work on their music videos? I don't know where they're based. I don't know. I'm taking a shot in the dark here. So I pay for it and I say my hellos down the line and I get to Spencer finally. And I said, hey, I'm just throwing it out there. If you ever need a makeup artist, like I'm willing to travel, etc. So he introduces me to the director because he happened to be there that day, Dan Horahan, because they were working on the Silver Screen music videos, because at that point the Silver Screen wasn't released. So basically, fast forward, I'm working on the set of A Grave Mistake, Stabbing in the Dark. So that was really cool. But I was assisting the artist that they hired at the time to then speed up. I was doing the makeup for the short skit of Axmas, and then It Is the End. So that was really fun. And then how I got into the touring side of it, they were out with Atreyu and like Moths to Flames. And this was around November. So they were rolling through like New York, New Jersey, and Massachusetts. And I went out to see them. And at that point, they had started to incorporate their different costumes and add props ever so slightly. So then after seeing all that, I kind of went home and decompressed and got some ducks in a row to bust up some courage. And I texted them. I was like, what if you want somebody to take care of that for you? So again, I just kind of like asked for my positions, and I came back to them saying yes. And so I just hopped on the tour like that.
Wow.
So my first tour was spring of 2019. It was a co-headliner of Ice Nine Kills from Ashes to New, with support of Palisades, Afterlife, and Hawk. And that,
Wow.
and I've been with them ever since.
It really just goes to show that asking, even though it's scary, can get you some amazing things. You just have to be willing to put yourself out there. So that's amazing.
We've talked about that so much in terms of, hey, this is a terrifying thought to really request something out of the blue, and you know that you could be potentially facing a crazy rejection that can really hurt sometimes. But hey, the other side of it is something like this, that success story, where now this is something you have had for a couple of years because you took some random offshot chance. So it's really cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I reached out to the tour manager. I reached out to Spencer. I got a couple, I was talking with Ricky for a little bit. And I was like, do you think it's a good idea? Like, what do you think? He's like, if you ask, what's going to happen? They say no. And we continue the tour and everything's going to be fine. You still have your job. Because I was working a retail job at that point, and it was along the lines of like, they would have to like remove me or let me go because I was going to be gone for such a period of time. And I was like, screw it. Let's go. Full send.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
It really is. And of course, we're talking about the bands that you've worked with, those huge names like Ice Nine and Motionless in White, but you've also done work with Lamb of God on some of their videos and with tons of other cool people. And it's amazing how you really do start growing such wonderful friendships with these bands. And we love seeing that community and just people commenting on each other's stuff, straight up championing one another. And I see it so much within your post as well. So tell us a little bit about one of those moments where you were on tour, backstage, or with the boys, and you kind of had one of those moments where you take a step back and you think, holy shit, these are now my friends.
Yeah, I've had a couple of those, especially like this year. I think one of the first ones that I experienced was we did a Europe tour. This was actually the tour that COVID shut down, but we were in Europe with Hollywood and Den and Papa Roach. And it was towards the end of the tour, not before like the announcements that the pandemic was gearing up, but it was more along the lines of like, I was like having casual conversations with Jacoby, and then like the Hollywood Undead guys, we were just casually like chit chatting and, BSing and catering. And I just kind of reflected, I was like, these are the freaking bands that I would put on my MySpace like theme song if you were to go to my page, and I'm just having a conversation with them. I said, what just happened? So that was like the first one. And I really got to sit back and think like, my life is kind of really cool. And I can't believe this is where I'm at. And then the second one was actually during Trinity. I mean, all throughout Trinity, just meeting amazing people from Atreyu and obviously the Motionless guys, like getting closer with them and everything. Like there are just so many moments hitting me. I was like, I just had a conversation with so-and-so. And I just, yeah, I think the one really big one this past year was when it was Atlanta, Georgia, a couple days after my birthday, and Chris decides to call me out on stage and wish me a happy birthday. Ice Nine had already played their set, so we were done, and I was just watching them side stage. And the show had stopped for whatever reason. I think somebody was hurt, so security was taking their time to get to the middle of the pit to make sure everyone was good. And in that moment, he decides, I need to embarrass you. Come out here and let me wish you a happy birthday. And I lost it. I said, this is not what's happening to me right now. So yes, a lot of those moments, I try not to let everything get to me super hard and just have, I guess for lack of a better way, is like starstruck moments, but they happen. And I always kind of sit back and try to, okay, this is my life. This is what's really happening. And it's crazy. Every single time it's crazy. It's like, it's the first time.
You
We've
know
been
what's funny
there.
is
Yeah.
I think I had a very similar moment with Jacoby as well, where he was sitting across from me and I was like, dude, this is nuts. So it's funny that we both have that same reaction to the same person too.
Yeah. And Jacoby is so down to earth and just loves to socialize with people. I mean, there are countless times I would just see him like doing his morning jog down the hallway and he'd be like, hey, what's up? You having a good day? Okay, awesome. I'll see you later at showtime. You know, and it's just like, he's the man. He's so great.
I think the best part of it is knowing that those people behind the scenes are actually just as nice as you hope, you know, because we have these expectations of when you meet people and they're these gigantic stars in your mind, and then you really just see how humble and kind they are, and then they befriend you when they don't necessarily have to talk to anybody outside their circles. And I think it's really cool to see your experience and how far you've come with that. So it just makes us happy because we've been there too, where you're just literally in awe and you're thinking to yourself, how am I geeking out? Do they see I'm geeking out? What's happening?
Yes. Yeah, there have been a couple times where I was like, just shut up, just stand still. Like, it's fine, like, shut up. Like, it's fine, everything's fine.
Yeah. And we did talk a little bit about your come up story, obviously. So was that tour you did with Ice Nine, was that the first tour you had ever done?
Yeah, spring 2019 was like my first tour. Like, I've been a concert goer, I've been attending shows for, I don't know, since I was before born. My mom used to go to rock shows with me in her belly and everything. So I guess I was born into this, which is kind of funny. But yeah, that was my first tour. Very little experience, not knowing the ins and outs, nothing. All I knew, I was there to dress the boys up, make them look good for stage, and just be on standby. And like, that was it. And thinking about it now, like, just that's what I started as to what I'm doing now is like just mind blowing. If I were to tell myself back then, in the matter of just 4 years, what I would be doing now, I'd look at myself and be like, there's no way that person would know who I am. Like, it's not gonna happen. And yeah, it's crazy.
Dude, I think we both have a similar, like, I resonate with that as well. Cause like when I did Warped Tour, I was thrown off the deep end. That was my first tour ever with no other practice or knowing what it's like to be living on the road. So having really kind of done the same thing, there's so many things that you have to kind of figure out with experience. Like, where do I keep my stuff in the bus? What goes in the bay? What goes in my bunk? It's like these little intricacies. So when you first started touring, what were some of the biggest learning curves that you had to figure out along the way, as far as like the touring lifestyle and etiquette of even just sharing a bus with all these guys? What were some of the biggest challenges for you?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I have a brother, and you know, so like, just being around men, they're disgusting. So like, that was no sweat off my back. I was just like, okay, so somebody just farted. I've done burp contests, so I'm fine with that. Like, that doesn't bother me. But I think one of the biggest things was just learning to live small and minimalistic. I had to like really tell myself, like, I don't need that extra shirt. I don't need that extra pair of shoes. And even still, like, to this day, I tell myself, I was like, I'm going to wear these pair of shoes once, and it's just for this one outfit. And then that's the end of it. I'm going to have to send something home. And it happens every time. And I tell myself, like, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. It's not going to happen. And it ends up happening. So I think the biggest thing is to learn minimalistic. Like, if it doesn't fit in the suitcase, it's not coming. And to just roll with the punches. I know it sounds easier said than done, but like, really just like roll with everything. I always like keep certain things in my bunk. I've like my toiletry bag, I stay in my bunk, but everyone makes fun of me because my bunk is the hoard bunk. I have drinks hoarded in there because I don't want anyone stealing them. I have snacks in there sometimes. My backpack stays in there with all my necessary things. So like, when we get hotel rooms, that's the bag I take into the hotel room with everything. So I think the biggest thing is just to learn a minimalistic lifestyle and make sure you don't overpack, because it's a very like, you literally live out of what you bring. Like, you could always go to Walmart and pick things up, but it's that personal space really just doesn't exist. Yeah. The only thing for your personal space is a little curtain in your bunk. And, you know, maybe the 5 minutes to wake up before everybody else for that peace and quiet, but it doesn't last long. So yeah, it's sometimes off days you just completely like zone out and disassociate from everybody, so you have that peace and quiet, but it's crazy. A lot, I always get asked to like, how do I get your job or how can I do what you do? And it's always the same thing of like, can you handle it? Can you handle being on the road? Because it's not glitz and glam.
It's so true. It looks so nice on the internet. Like, ooh, you're rolling up in a tour bus. You're just glammed out in makeup every day. But like, those things are very, very real, especially like having to keep things in your bunk and you're sleeping next to your backpack and a bunch of guys all in one hallway where they're all farting in the same hallway in the middle of the night. It's real.
It is.
Oh man.
It is.
No, you had mentioned something there too in terms of overpacking and then realizing once you're there, what do I do? How do I bring all this back? I've been in positions where I've literally had to mail things home or pick up extra suitcases. And a lot of people too don't realize you accumulate so much stuff on the road, whether things that fans give you, little knickknacks, things you buy for yourself. So I think it's a really good point for everyone listening in terms of, hey, manage it, be minimalistic, because you'll be bringing back a lot more than you came with.
Right. And like, sometimes like laundry obviously exists on the road, not as frequent sometimes as we would like. But another thing that goes with it is like, are you comfortable wearing the same pants like maybe 3 days in a row, 4 days in a row with that you had swamp ass at one point? Like you just got to deal with it in a way.
Got to do it. I gotta say, the first time I did Warped Tour, I didn't realize that you could do laundry, so I actually packed a different outfit for almost every day.
No.
Yeah.
We live and we learn, my friend.
I almost wish I could have seen this interview back in 2015. I needed you, Chevy. Where were you?
Honestly, like it was my first tour too. I was like, I don't know what it's gonna be like. I'm just gonna bring, like 20 shirts and 5 pants or like, 10 pairs of pants. It'll be fine. As long as I have more underwear than clothing, I'm golden, But yes, I quickly learned that laundry does exist. And it is a thing and it is a blessing.
Well, the other day, it was really fun because as we were learning a little bit more about you, I stumbled into one of your live makeup tutorials on Instagram, and you randomly shared that your biggest tip for becoming great at makeup is very simple. It's practice and patience. Now, I'm no makeup queen like yourself, but with time, it's kind of crazy how you can hone your skills and really go from like these crazy wonky lines to flawless wings a lot of the time. So what would you say are some of the makeup trends or tutorials that took you the longest, the most practice and patience to eventually perfect?
Definitely anything SFX. It's such a, I hate to say a niche because we see SFX stuff through all kinds of forms of entertainment, including music. But it really is just, practice and patience and learning to accept failure in any way, whether that's like the look actually failing or you failing yourself in the least harsh way that I mean that. I mean, like if you lose motivation or if you just suddenly not like how it's turning out, you just got to like work through it and see it through and then obviously like come back to it so you can finish that. It's hard to like give a pinpoint of like certain tips and tricks because there's just so much that goes into it. But I think trying to not be so hard on yourself and accept your mistakes and make sure you see them through to come back and perfect them is probably the biggest ones that I could say, because between beauty makeup and then SFX makeup and certain products, like each has their own pros and cons and different techniques. So those are the ones I even try to remind myself pretty frequently.
I feel like we've all been in that position where we'll be doing our makeup or watching someone else do it, and then you kind of screw up and you really feel like the world's crumbling in your hands.
I mean, that's your face.
Yeah, no, seriously, it takes a lot to hone it in. So when you can see someone flawlessly doing it, it does kind of inspire you in a sense, but at the same time you realize just take a breath, you'll get it eventually,
Yeah. I've experienced a couple of times like I have to leave to go to work and I have about 5 minutes before I need to be in my car and on the road and my wing is just not the same as the other one and I'm just like like the enraged like high volume increase moment and I completely agree.
Yeah. Well, I know Ice Nine Kills have definitely put you to work, so you get lots of practice on the SFX makeup. That is for sure.
Yes.
And so out of all of the projects, whether it be onstage makeup or the music videos or anything in between, out of all the looks you've done, which one sticks out in your mind as being the most challenging to master? And then once you finished it, the most rewarding, and why?
I think for the Ice Nine guys, when we first started, we did more of our character makeup. The most challenging was probably Dan's Leatherface makeup, because that was a silicone look, so it required like a 2-part process of products, waiting for that to be at its perfect temperature in order to apply to the skin. So that was pretty time consuming. The most difficult in a sense of just application and time was probably Spencer, because he didn't sit still most of the time. And at one point we put a contact in his eye, which looked so cool. But I remember there was one show where he's like, I just took it out and I don't know where it went. And I said, what do you mean you don't know where it went? But like, I love doing the character stuff, but with that, obviously, like the cleanup and making sure the guys were good with, they had their own challenges. But my favorite overall would probably be like Patrick's designs, because his was so flexible. So everyone had their own characters, but Patrick had a backyard or woods like cult kind of person, more leaning into the Saw character, because he had that pig mask from Pulp Riot. Amazing mask, hair, everything. It was
so scary,
beautifully designed. Yes, very scary. And underneath it, we would do makeup, but we were able to just do so much. I remember there were some shows he'd come to me and be like, Chev, I saw this and I want to try this. And I would get excited because it's like, oh yes, let's go, like something new. And then he'd have his personal favorites, and it was great. That one was just so exciting for me. To do something different and try different things. Another favorite recently was when I was able to do the Motionless in White Outburn magazine shoot. It was my first time actually being able to work with the band for cosmetics, and it was just I was nervous. I was just sitting there, I was like, okay, I'm doing it. We're doing it. It's gonna be great. And Chris's makeup artist Erin came out, so I got to like meet her in person, and it was just a great time. And then, they turned out great. I gave myself a good pat on the back for that one. But yeah, like those are really just the fun ones. And any of the other music videos, like I've done so many at this point, like the Lamb of God ones were just a great experience. I didn't have the pleasure to meet the band, but just knowing that like my work is tied into that. I've done a lot of really fun stuff.
So I just want to ask, because I feel like this is kind of funny. Like, so you worked with so many band members doing their makeup, and I could just imagine, like you were saying, how, people get fidgety doing makeup, Spencer, with the contact. So which member of the band was the most tricky to like do their makeup and have them sit still and like focus?
In the beginning, it was Joe, because he would always like, oh, I got to eat something. So he'll eat his food in between doing his makeup. And then Spencer, just because, he's always the last one, just because either he had interviews or he was coming back from doing something or whatever. He was just always the last to go. So even still, sometimes he like just is either on his phone, or I need him to like tilt his face a certain way. Or he have his AirPods in and I'll try to talk to him. He goes, ha. But Joe has gotten so much better. He even knows the certain directions to turn his face, like time wise. So he's got it down pat. I would say just occasionally they have their own little ticks, but sometimes Spencer just doesn't. He either doesn't show up when I need him to show up, so I got to rush a little bit, or I just need to hit certain angles that he just doesn't turn, but he does get a little fidgety. And it's never anything like super crazy. Yeah. I've also just like turned his head and everything. There are sometimes the boys will, when I'm putting on their like foundation, they'll put their head down for some reason. And I said, why are you putting your chin to your chest? And he goes, and they say, well, not he, but they all said, like, I don't know, isn't that the angle you need? I said, if you're drawing on a piece of paper and it's tilted at a way you can't draw, how am I supposed to do that? And they all did the collective, oh. I said, I didn't know I needed to use that kind of analogy for them to get it. So from then on, they kind of like did the whole like sit still, chin up kind of thing.
I love it.
Yeah, very funny.
Thank you for the tea.
Yes.
It's fun learning the behind the scenes though, because I genuinely didn't know that they were the ones coming to you with their concepts every time, or they'd get excited about a design and say, hey, can you perfect this for me, rather than you coming in with all of your ideas. Because a big part of being an MUA, a wardrobe consultant, even covering band members head to toe in temporary tattoos, which looked amazing.
Thank you.
Of course. But when it comes to that kind of stuff, so much goes into it in terms of the idea. And I know that thrift shops and Hot Topic are definitely go-tos for you. But where do you personally kind of love finding props and clothing pieces for these photo shoots and editorials?
I mean, definitely like, I mean, Amazon is just such easy access. Believe it or not, my mom, I've kept a lot of clothing from my mom. She's very she was very like 80s grunge and 90s vibe and everything. So even through like her friends, I've gotten a lot of hand-me-downs, a lot of really cool vintage clothing. So I've obviously have a lot of clothing, more than I'd like to admit. But some of that clothing I really just like reuse for music videos, or I have just like really crazy authentic vintage types clothing. But yeah, thrift shops all around. When I was living in Staten Island for college, I would go to the city and just try to find really cool any type of aesthetic that it could be used for a concept, and I've held on to it. But thrift shops are kind of the main thing. And if it comes to props, I like to either attempt to make it my own, like from scratch, or I will buy like a base and then build off of it so that it can be customized. But yeah, the most of the Ice Nine props is currently made by an amazing artist. Her name is Missy. She's based in LA. So all of our stuff now for stage stuff, between like the body parts, even our chainsaws that we have, and even the masks that we wear on stage now, like she customizes and makes all of those. And it's mind-blowing to see, because that's something I also aspire to do. She's great. So most of that stuff we go through her for the Ice Nine Kills stuff, but for me, it's definitely a lot of like thrifting and the same thing she does, but me do it. So
Amazing. I guess once you open for Metallica, you could just have everything customized. You've made it at that point, right?
That's also still processing that we get to do that for like the next year and a half.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Amazing. And we were talking a little bit about how being on the road means less storage and having to be really compact with the things that you bring. So I'd love to hear, in terms of also makeup products, what are some of the must-have travel items in your work makeup kit as well as your personal makeup kit, since you have to be really selective when you're on the road?
Yeah, so I do have a Pelican that I comically joke to anybody that has to touch it that it's 65 pounds, because it is 65 pounds. And everyone says, is there a dead body in here? And I said, it might as well be. So don't drop it, because it might kick. It might kick the case. So, but you know, I have an airbrush machine. I have tons of brushes, sanitation stuff in there. So it does like kind of bulk up after a while. But some of my main ones I always keep is my airbrush kit with all the foundations. I try to revamp on them every tour that I go out with, considering how long we're going to be out for. Certain shades I use more than others. Another really good product is the Ben Nye Final Seal. It's a waterproof mattifying setting spray. I actually can't use it on Patrick because he says he can't sweat. It like blocks his pores to where he can't sweat. So I don't use it on him, and I let him just sweat it all off. But the other guys like just lightly blot their face. It's a great one of my holy grails. I always keep a stack amount of brushes in case like I don't have power. There are a couple times in Europe, just because of the voltage difference, I didn't want to plug in my airbrush machine and then have it be fried. So I did like just the regular brush foundation type of process on them, and it still turned out, you know, fine. But yeah, I just try to keep like a stack. My primary stuff, which is mostly the airbrush and some powder, and then the secondary for any kind of like backups or like it needed in a pinch kind of thing.
Cool.
Yeah, those voltage outlets are dangerous. I remember I was once traveling to my first trip to the UK, and you don't know what's going to work and what's not going to, right? And I had one of those Revlon like blowout hair dryers. Dude, the thing literally started flaming. And so I turned it off right away, and then luckily it's turned off, but I could have blown up the entire Airbnb. It was terrifying.
Alicia, the same thing happened to me with the same blow dryer in England.
Stop. Yeah. Are you kidding?
So
that's
yeah,
so
fair warning, everyone.
Yeah. Just if you happen to have one of those Revlon dryers, folks, be careful.
That's not terrifying.
Oh my goodness. Well, I loved seeing both of your faces kind of jaw drop there, which is the perfect segue into our next segment, which is our most jaw dropping segment, where we love discussing different things with you that literally made your own jaw drop. So first up, what would you say is the most jaw dropping experience that you ever had at a show?
I don't know, like during the show,
It
or
can be a
just
show that you've been to as a fan, when you were on tour with a band, something you saw in the crowd, anything at any sort of gig atmosphere where you went, wow, did that just happen?
um I mean, Metallica. I was like in the crowd watching Metallica, and they did the whole firework thing, and then we kind of like looked at each other like, did we just do this? Like, that was crazy. There was one time. Oh well, we one funny thing, we used to do our song "Rocking in the Boat," which calls for a shark costume to come out and do its little moment. So there was in 2019 when we did the Octane Accelerator tour, it was like it was the last show actually in New York City. And we had Tuck from Fit for a King come out in the shark costume, and he went out into the crowd and like kind of crowd surfed. We all knew it was happening, but like to watch it happen, and then all of a sudden you see the costume like kind of deflate and him just like flop around like an actual fish. We were just like, wait, was this a good idea? Did we just like mess up? That was really cool. One personal jaw drop for me was actually when Chris came out of his bus. We were in Arizona to start Trinity Pre-Pro. He came out the bus and came up to me. He's like, I have been waiting so long to meet you, and I can't believe I actually get to tour with you. And I said, me? Me? That was really cool. Another I think it's just so many like really cool things, but I think the main one was just the like jaw drop. Like, we did a show with Metallica. Yeah. Like, that was just like, crazy. It was so
and,
crazy.
I love on that how at first you were thinking to yourself, I don't know what to even say here. And then as soon as you got the ball rolling, it was like one great moment after the other, which is so nice.
Yeah, definitely lots more to look forward to in the future too. So if we ever chat again, it's going to be a whole new list. So more to come.
For sure.
And the next one here is the most jaw-dropping misstep earlier in your career and the lesson that you learned from it.
Misstep. I mean, it's still, I'll be completely honest, it still happens occasionally, but sometimes if like props go missing, or if they just happen to get misplaced, we have endless amounts of props. I think that goes without saying. But I think one that like really took the cake was recently we lost the Freddy Krueger hat for American Nightmare. Spencer like will sometimes throw it, but he doesn't, when he throws it, he doesn't know where it goes. So he threw it. And because my brain was in transition to just clean up and get the hell off stage, because it was Bring Me the Horizon. So we were just like, we were made sure to like, you get on, you get off, you gotta go. We unfortunately did have to cut a good chunk of that set because somebody got hurt in the stage. They were going way too hard. So we had to cut at least like 3 songs, just because that's how long it took for security to get to take care of who got hurt in the crowd. But either way, by the time we got to the end of it, we lost the hat, and I just had to go on and find like a pompadour fedora looking hat, and it was so difficult, and it was kind of like, Chev, like, you're supposed to be in charge of this, like, you can't let this happen. And I said, no, I know you're right, I'm so sorry, but nah. So occasionally like it still happens, and luckily now we're able to account for like backups with certain things. But I mean, I can't recall the first prop that I've ever lost, but it was definitely like just not good, because
panic mode,
exactly. I was like, how are we gonna do the set now? Like, we don't have that prop. And obviously the show will always go on because it's about the music, but as far as like my department, and that's what I'm in charge of, it was that. That's kind of the major one. I mean, anything as far as makeup, I always have, like I said, backups or just like an alternative to make sure that it still happens. But I never, that's probably the biggest oh shit moment with the props getting misplaced or moved. There have been plenty of times too that I have to like, if we're, especially festival days, everyone likes to look at the props and like poke at the severed head and like see everything that's really cool. But actually, speaking upon that, we've had props stolen for fest days because people just are like,
Really?
this is really cool and it's from Ice Nine Kills, and nothing like absolutely major, but enough like some things that have just gotten like taken from us that it's like, why? Because now we can't do our show.
Yeah.
Or now we
that's
can't
not-
like, but yeah, props are probably my thing.
Yeah, they go missing as is, folks. So don't go stealing them. That's just not nice.
Yeah.
Of
That's when I
course you-
become the not nice person.
as you should become, you know, it's
Yeah.
warranted at that point. But of course,
Right.
we've been talking about a lot of the cool guys that you get to work with, but on this show as well, as you know, as we're spotlighting you, we talked to some fantastic females. So we'd love to know, who is the most jaw-dropping female artist that you'd love to eventually work with?
Eventually, hooey. I would love to like Lady Gaga. Love her. I know that's like really like up there. But I think just like her whole imagery and aesthetic and how much of a shapeshifter she is, I think that's like really cool. The Cherry Bombs on a little bit of a lower level. Like I had the pleasure and the absolute honor to meet two of them when they performed with Motionless in White. Amanda and Talitha are just angels in human form. And I did also have the pleasure to meet Alicia at one show when she came to see the girls, and all like sweet human beings. If I ever had the honor to work alongside them, that would be another like oh my god, this is my life moment. And this moment is obviously another really great one just for production value and everything that Maria adds into her show. Yeah, just I think anybody at this point to see another badass woman on stage would just kind of be like, heck yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the cool thing about the rock genre as well, is we're seeing more and more like theatrics and makeup and all of that getting intertwined into the genre. So the possibilities are endless, dude. But let's reach for Lady Gaga as well. You know, we're not all genres allowed. So I love to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one for you here, the most jaw-dropping misconception about you that you wish people understood.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, a lot of people think that I'm intimidating and not super approachable, but meanwhile, when they meet me, they're like, "Oh my god, you're like a box of rainbow and sunshines. It's great." I'm also not much of a pushover. Like at first, I can be a pushover, but I'd rather you not, because I don't want to have to get nasty, and I will. But yeah, I am definitely one to strive for the top, and I know the top is ever growing and it keeps getting higher and higher, but I do plan to eventually get there. So
yeah. I mean, it's a cutthroat industry. So as much as, you know, we're all very nice girls, we also got to be aggressive and fight for what we want. Comes with the territory, doesn't it?
yes, it does.
The territory, you know what I mean, guys?
Oh wow. I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Thank you. I'll be here all night. Subscribe for more.
Exactly. What's cool to see too, though, is you mentioned how Gaga is up here before, and at one point I'm sure you thought Ice Nine Kills are up there, Motionless is, Lamb of God sets would be. So it's kind of like you can have those goals as high as humanly possible, because you never know what really is attainable. And next thing you know, you could be on stage with her. So she could be the next one calling you up for your birthday. Who knows? So it's cool to see that, though. However, but we really just want to say thank you for sharing your stories today and really letting people know this entire craft that we feel should have more of a light shown on it, and just really what you do for these bands, because we see it, but we don't know exactly what goes down or how it does. And now we do, thanks to you.
Heck yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, Chevy, it's been so cool getting to catch up with you after all this time. So thank you again. And everybody watching, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. She's with the Band on Knotfest. New episodes every Wednesday right here is where you'll find us. So thank you again, Chevy, and to my co-host Alicia for kicking butt as always. And we will catch you next time. Bye, y'all.